You want to know what it feels like to watch your ex-husband beg? I mean really beg, on his knees, in a rented tuxedo, in front of everyone who ever thought you were trash? Here's how it happened. I walked into that reunion late on purpose. The band stopped mid-song. 300 heads turned. Brad saw me first. He grinned that same grin he wore the day he left me, standing in our kitchen, tossing divorce papers onto the table while our daughter's chemo bill sat unopened on the counter. Angie, he called out, loud enough for the whole gym. Did you get lost on your way to clean my office? Bathrooms are down the hall. His new wife cackled. His buddies high-fived. I didn't say a word. I walked straight up to him, heels clicking on the old gym floor, and I dropped a single sheet of paper onto his plate of rubber chicken. He glanced down. Smirked. What's this? A restraining order? Don't flatter your. Then he actually read it. His face collapsed. His hand started trembling so hard the paper rattled. Because that sheet of paper wasn't a letter. It was a deed. A stock certificate. A termination notice. All three, wrapped into one very clean, very legal, very permanent execution. I own you now, Bradley, I said. Not loud. Soft. The way you whisper a secret. The company. The house. The car. Even that stupid little boat you named after yourself. All of it. Mine. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. And one more thing. I leaned in so only he could hear. The woman you left for dead? She just became your landlord. Your boss. And your worst nightmare. Rent's due Friday. Don't be late. I turned around and walked out. Behind me, his wife started screaming. A chair hit the floor. Somebody yelled, Brad, get up, man. I didn't look back. Funny thing about rock bottom. Sometimes you have to hit it yourself, just to find out who put it there. 8 years earlier, I couldn't have dreamed of a moment like that. Not even close. 8 years earlier, I was on my knees in a hospital chapel at 3 a.m, trying to remember how to pray. The air smelled like bleach and cafeteria coffee. The plastic pew creaked every time I shifted my weight. My daughter Emily was down the hall, 6 years old, bald as a cue ball from her first round of chemo, sleeping with a stuffed giraffe tucked under her chin. I hadn't slept in 3 days. Brad had stopped answering his phone 2 days before that. I found out later he was at a Holiday Inn in Nashville with his secretary, Tiffany, ordering room service and telling her how his marriage had been dead for years. He told her I'd let myself go. He told her I cried too much. He told her the cancer thing was a real downer and he needed to focus on his career. His career. Brad sold hardware supplies for his daddy's company. His biggest professional achievement was remembering to wear matching socks. But I didn't know any of that yet. Not that night. That night, I just thought he was working late. I left him 3 voicemails, each one more desperate than the last. The final one was just me breathing into the phone, trying not to sob, then hanging up before the beep. Emily's doctor came in at 4 a.m. Her face was tired but kind. The kind of tired you earn after 30 years of telling parents the thing they don't want to hear. The treatment is working, she said. But the insurance is fighting us on the next round. They're calling it experimental. Your out-of-pocket is going to be about $80,000. $80,000. I remember nodding like she'd told me the price of milk. My fingers went cold the way they do when the power goes out in a snowstorm and you know nobody's coming to fix it. I stared at my wedding ring, this sad little diamond chip Brad had financed at 12% interest, and I thought, that might cover one bag of saline. Brad finally showed up 3 days later. Not at the hospital. At home. I'd gone back to grab more clothes for Emily, and there he was, sitting at the kitchen table with a manila folder and a cup of coffee like he was closing a business deal. We need to talk, he said. The coffee was fresh. He'd made it for himself. Not for me. I'm not happy, Angie. He pushed the folder across the table. I haven't been happy for a long time. You're always tired. You never want to go out. And honestly, this whole thing with Emily, it's just a lot. It's a lot for a guy like me. A guy like him. I opened the folder. Divorce papers. He'd already signed them. His signature was neat and practiced, the B in Bradley looping up like a noose. You're leaving, I said. Not a question. I need space. I need to breathe. Tiffany, she gets me. She doesn't make everything so heavy all the time. Tiffany. I knew Tiffany. She answered his office phone. She wore perfume that smelled like melted lollipops and couldn't spell inventory without spellcheck. The day Emily was diagnosed, I said, you told me we'd get through this together. You held my hand in the parking lot and you said, and I quote, God doesn't give us more than we can handle. Brad looked at his watch. His nice watch. The one I'd bought him for our 5th anniversary with money I'd saved from cutting our own grass and doing our own oil changes. That was before I knew how much handling it was gonna take. He stood up. Adjusted his cuffs. Twice. That little tug-tug he always did before he told a lie. I'd seen it 100 times but never noticed it until that moment. Now it was all I could see. Keep the house if you want, he said. I already moved my stuff out. You can have the furniture too. I'm feeling generous. Generous. The furniture was 6 years old, bought on clearance from a rent-a-center that was going out of business. The couch had a stain from where Emily threw up after her first chemo session. I'd scrubbed it for an hour while Brad watched football. Brad. My voice came out strange. Calm. Too calm. Our daughter has cancer. He stopped at the door. His back was to me. I watched his shoulders go tight, then loose again, like he was shrugging off a coat. Yeah, he said. And you're better at that stuff than me. You always were. Then he walked out. Got into his truck. Drove away. I stood in that kitchen for a long time. The coffee got cold. The divorce papers sat on the table, his neat signature mocking me. Outside, somebody's dog barked 3 houses away. A lawnmower started up somewhere. The world kept spinning like nothing had happened. I remember thinking, I am 41 years old. I have no job. No savings. A sick child. A dead marriage. And somehow, I am supposed to keep breathing. I walked over to the sink and threw up. Then I washed my face with cold water, grabbed Emily's clothes, and drove back to the hospital. The whole way there, I kept one hand on the wheel and the other pressed against my stomach, like I could hold myself together by force. Emily was awake when I got back. Her little bald head turned toward me, and she smiled this huge, gap-toothed smile that made my chest crack open. Mommy, did you bring Mr. Girafferson a friend? He says he's lonely when you're gone. Mr. Girafferson. The stuffed giraffe. She talked to him constantly. The nurses played along. They'd ask Mr. Girafferson how he was feeling and take his temperature with a tiny plastic thermometer. I sat on the edge of her bed and pulled another stuffed animal out of the bag. A lion. I'd grabbed it from the gift shop downstairs and charged it to the hospital account. I had no idea how I was going to pay. This is Lieutenant Lion, I said. He's been assigned to protect Mr. Girafferson. Very serious mission. Emily examined the lion with the gravity of a general inspecting troops. Does he have combat experience? He fought in the Great Laundry Basket War of 2012. Decorated veteran. She nodded, satisfied, and tucked him next to the giraffe. Then she looked at me, and her face got serious. Too serious for a 6-year-old. Daddy's not coming back, is he? The question hit me like a fist to the throat. I couldn't lie to her. I'd never been able to lie to her, not even about Santa Claus. But I couldn't tell her the truth either. Not all of it. Your daddy, I said, choosing every word like I was picking my way through a minefield, is going through something right now. Something in his head. And until he figures it out, it's just going to be you and me and Mr. Girafferson and Lieutenant Lion. Okay? Emily was quiet for a moment. Then she reached up and patted my cheek with her small, warm hand. The hand that still had the 4 bruise. Okay, she said. But if he comes back, I'm putting him on latrine duty. I laughed. I couldn't help it. A wet, broken laugh that turned into a sob I had to muffle with my palm. Latrine duty. Where had she even learned that word? That was the moment. Right there. The moment I stopped being Brad Harrington's discarded wife and started becoming something else. Something harder. Something that wouldn't break. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a vision board or a 5-year strategy. All I had was a sick kid, $80,000 in bills I couldn't pay, and a rage so hot and clean it felt like prayer. I started small. The first thing I did was sell my wedding ring. Drove to a pawn shop on the bad side of town, the kind of place with bars on the windows and a guy behind the counter who looked like he'd been chewing on rocks his whole life. He took one look at that pathetic chip of a diamond and offered me $400. $500, I said. He looked at me. I looked at him. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead like a trapped fly. Lady, this ring is garbage. My husband gave it to me. That makes it ironic garbage. Irony costs extra. He almost smiled. Gave me $450. I took it. I used that money to print flyers at the library. Angie's Cleaning Services, no mess too big, no job too small. I put Emily's hospital room phone number at the bottom because I didn't have a cell phone anymore. I'd canceled it to save money. I hung those flyers on every bulletin board in town. The laundromat. The grocery store. The church fellowship hall. I stapled them to telephone poles until my fingers blistered. Then I waited. Nobody called for 3 days. On the 4th day, my neighbor Gladys called. She was 82 years old, mean as a wet cat, and her house smelled like mothballs and old newspapers. Heard you're cleaning houses now, she said. My daughter's coming for Christmas. Says my kitchen is a health hazard. I say she can kiss my behind. But I'll give you $40 to shut her up. $40. It was the most beautiful number I'd ever heard. Gladys's kitchen was worse than a health hazard. It was a war crime. There was something growing in the back of the refrigerator that I'm pretty sure had developed its own nervous system. I scrubbed that kitchen for 6 hours, until my knuckles bled and my back screamed and every muscle in my body begged me to stop. But I didn't stop. Because every time I wanted to quit, I pictured Brad's face. His stupid, handsome face as he adjusted his cuffs and walked out the door. I cleaned Gladys's kitchen like I was scrubbing him out of my life. One tile at a time. She paid me $40. Then she handed me a $20 tip and a Tupperware container of meatloaf. You're not bad at this, she said. I'll tell the girls at church. The girls at church. That was how it started. One old woman told another old woman, and suddenly I had 3 clients, then 5, then 8. I cleaned houses while Emily slept at the hospital. I cleaned houses while she went through her 2nd round of chemo. I cleaned houses in the middle of the night, running on gas station coffee and the stale donuts the nurses left in the break room. I got thinner. I got tougher. I stopped crying in my car and started singing along to the radio, old country songs about cheatin' and drinkin' and gettin' even. And I started noticing things. Rich people's houses are full of secrets. You learn that fast when you're the woman scrubbing their toilets. They leave papers out. They talk loud on the phone while you dust their baseboards. They treat you like furniture. One day, I was cleaning the home office of a man named Gerald Thornton. He owned a chain of hardware stores across 3 states. Big competitor to Harrington Home Supplies. His desk was covered with financial reports and merger documents and letters from lawyers. He was on the phone while I vacuumed. screaming at somebody about market share and aggressive expansion and putting those Harrington sons of bitches out of business. I turned off the vacuum. "Excuse me," I said. He spun around, shocked I could talk. "What?" "The Harrington account. The regional one. They're vulnerable on their supply chain. They use a single distributor out of Memphis. One fire, one strike, one bad quarter, and their whole inventory collapses." He stared at me. "How do you know that?" "Because I was married to one of those sons of bitches for 14 years, I thought. Because I used to do his expense reports. Because he was too stupid to realize I was paying attention." "I read," I said. "Gerald Thornton didn't hire me as his cleaning lady anymore. He hired me as a consultant. Then as an analyst. Then as his director of strategic acquisitions. I still cleaned houses on weekends, not because I needed the money anymore, but because it reminded me where I came from. Every time I scrubbed a floor, I remembered what it felt like to be invisible. And I swore I would never make anyone feel that way. Not my employees. Not my daughter. Not even my enemies. Well, maybe my enemies. A little bit. Over the next 5 years, I climbed. Quietly. Patiently. I learned everything there was to know about the hardware supply industry. I built relationships with distributors and manufacturers and logistics companies. I saved my money like a miser, invested it like a shark, and waited. Gerald Thornton retired and sold me his controlling shares at a price that made his accountant weep. I merged his company with 2 others. I rebranded. I expanded into 17 states. I became the silent majority shareholder of a holding company that owned, among other things, 43% of Harrington Home Supplies. Not enough to control it. Not yet. But enough to watch. Brad had no idea. He was still at Harrington, still coasting on his daddy's name, still telling everyone he was a big shot. He'd married Tiffany 3 months after our divorce was final. They bought a house on Maple Street, a house I now knew was mortgaged to the hilt. They drove matching SUVs, both leased. They posted Instagram photos of their vacations, all financed with credit card debt. I knew all of this because I had a private investigator on retainer. Her name was Sheila. She was a retired cop with a nicotine habit and a gift for finding things people wanted hidden. "He's 3 payments behind on the mortgage," Sheila told me over coffee one morning. 2 behind on the cars. And he just got put on a performance improvement plan at work. His boss is looking for a reason to fire him. "Good," I said. "Let's give him a reason." We made our move on a Tuesday. A hostile takeover disguised as a friendly merger. The board voted 6-1 to sell me their remaining shares. The one dissenting vote was Brad's father, who was too senile to understand what was happening. Just like that, I owned Harrington Home Supplies. All of it. Every store, every warehouse, every employee, every asset. Including Bradley Harrington Jr. The day the papers were signed, I sat in my office and looked out the window at the Nashville skyline. I was 47 years old. I had more money than I could spend in 3 lifetimes. My daughter was healthy and happy and applying to colleges. And my ex-husband didn't know I existed. That was the part one kept coming back to. For 8 years, he hadn't thought about me. Hadn't wondered where I was or what I was doing. I was a footnote in his life story. A speed bump. A first wife he mentioned at parties to get sympathy. I wanted to change that. The high school reunion invitation showed up 2 weeks later. Jefferson High Class of '98, 25-year reunion. There would be a dinner, a dance, a charity auction. All the old faces. All the old grudges. I almost threw it away. Then I thought about Brad, standing in that kitchen, adjusting his cuffs. I thought about Emily, 6 years old and bald, asking if her daddy was coming back. I thought about all the nights I'd scrubbed toilets and sung country songs and held myself together with nothing but rage and coffee. I RSVP'd yes. The night of the reunion, I stood in front of my mirror and looked at myself. Really looked. The woman staring back was unrecognizable. Not because of the dress, it was nice but simple, a navy blue wrap dress I'd bought at a department store for $90. Not because of the jewelry, just my dad's old Timex and a pair of pearl studs Emily had given me for Christmas. It was the eyes. The eyes were different. The old Angie had soft eyes. Hopeful eyes. Eyes that still believed people were basically good. This Angie had eyes like flint. My phone buzzed. Mary Lou, my operations director, was waiting outside in a beat-up sedan. The plan was simple: she'd stay in the car, monitor the feeds from the tiny camera I'd clipped to my dress, and feed me information through a nearly invisible earpiece. "Ready?" she asked when I climbed in. I polished my dad's watch with my thumb. The glass was scratched, the band was worn thin. He'd given it to me when I graduated high school, right before the cancer took him. "Keep track of time," he'd said. "It's the one thing you can't get back." "I've been ready for 8 years, I said. We pulled up to the school. The old gymnasium loomed against the night sky, its windows glowing with cheap string lights and nostalgia. I could hear the band playing some sad country cover. I could hear laughter and clinking glasses. Mary Lou caught my eye in the rearview mirror. Her 2-second pause. Then, "Don't kill him. He's not worth the jail time." "I make no promises." I got out of the car and walked toward the gym. The door swung open. The band stopped mid-song. And Brad Harrington looked up from his rubber chicken and smiled the smile of a man who thought he'd already won. The band had been playing some sad country cover when I walked in. Now the guitar player just stood there, fingers frozen on the strings, staring at me like he'd seen a ghost. Maybe he had. The old Angie Harrington would have shown up in something beige, apologizing for taking up space. This woman, the one in the navy wrap dress with the cheap watch and the flint in her eyes, she didn't apologize for anything. Brad was still holding that piece of paper. His lips moved but no sound came out. Around us, the gym hummed with confusion. People whispered behind their hands. Someone's fork clattered onto a plate. Then Tiffany grabbed the paper from him. "Let me see that." Her voice cut through the silence like a knife through cheap cake. She scanned the document, her collagen-injected lips forming each word. Her face went from confused to furious to something that looked a lot like panic. "Bradley. Bradley, what is this? What does this mean?" Brad didn't answer. He was still staring at me. His cuff was bunched up around his wrist where he'd been tugging at it. "It means," I said, pleasant as a Sunday school teacher, "that your husband's employment situation has changed. Dramatically. As of 9 o'clock this morning, I own every share of Harrington Home Supplies." The board voted. "The papers are signed. It's done." "You can't do that." Brad finally found his voice. It came out cracked, desperate. "My father built that company. You can't just. Your father built it. You coasted on it. There's a difference." I picked up a plastic cup of wine from the nearest table and took a sip. It was terrible. Cheap Chablis that tasted like regret and artificial sweetener. I savored every drop. "Also, your father voted yes. Turns out he's been looking for an exit strategy for years. He just didn't trust you to handle it." That landed like a bomb. Brad actually staggered backward, bumping into the table. His plate of rubber chicken slid off and hit the floor with a wet smack. Nobody laughed. Nobody helped him pick it up. "You're lying," he said. "My dad would never." "Call him." I pulled out my phone and set it on the table. "Go ahead. His number's still the same, right? 615-555-1847? Brad stared at the phone like it was a snake. I knew the number because I used to dial it every Christmas, back when I was still trying to keep the family together. His father never answered. His mother would pick up, say, "He's not available, dear," and hang up before I could say Merry Christmas. Tiffany was still reading the document. Her finger traced the lines, her forehead creased. It says here the house is in your name. Our house. The one we live in. How can our house be in your name? That's the deed, sweetheart. You're holding the deed to 1427 Maple Street. I closed on it last Tuesday. Cash offer. No inspection needed. I smiled at her. A real smile. Warm, even. You have lovely taste in curtains, by the way. The floral ones in the living room? Gorgeous. Tiffany's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. But we live there, she said, like she was explaining gravity to someone who'd just fallen off a ladder. Our furniture is there. Our wedding photos are there. Our dog is there. Your dog is adorable. What's his name again? Buster? I love golden retrievers. I took another sip of terrible wine. I'm not going to kick you out immediately. I'm not a monster. You have 30 days to find a new place. Consider it a grace period. For Buster's sake. Someone in the crowd snorted. I turned and saw Joe, the old janitor, leaning on his mop by the back wall. He'd been the janitor when I was in high school. He'd been the janitor when my mother was in high school. Joe was the kind of man who saw everything and said nothing. He winked at me. I winked back. Brad finally moved. He grabbed Tiffany's arm and pulled her toward the side door, his face red as a stop sign. We're leaving. Come on. Oh, I don't think so. My voice stopped him cold. You haven't been to one of these in 20 years, Brad. Don't you want to catch up? The charity auction hasn't even started yet. I don't care about the auction. You should. Half the proceeds go to the children's hospital. The oncology wing, specifically. I let that hang in the air. Emily's wing. The one she stayed in for 18 months while you were in Nashville ordering room service. The gym went dead quiet again. You could hear the ice melting in people's drinks. Brad's jaw tightened. His hand dropped from Tiffany's arm. He was trapped and he knew it. If he left now, he was the man who abandoned his sick kid and then refused to donate to the hospital that saved her. If he stayed, I would dismantle him piece by piece in front of everyone. He stayed. The band started playing again, something soft and forgettable. People drifted back to their conversations, but the energy had shifted. Every few seconds, someone glanced our way. The gossip was already spreading, jumping from table to table like a grease fire. I could track it by watching heads turn, mouths drop, eyes widen. Mary Lou's voice buzzed in my earpiece. You're doing great, boss. The camera feed is crystal clear. I'm recording everything. I touched my ear. Good. Make sure you get the part where his face turns purple. Which part? It's been purple for 5 minutes. I smiled and made my way toward the bar. A man I vaguely recognized stepped into my path. He was paunchy now, bald on top, but he had the same eager-to-please expression he'd worn back when he was Brad's backup quarterback. Angie? Angie Brooks? I mean, Harrington? I mean, what do you call yourself now? Angie works fine. I'm Dave Morrison. Davy Morrison. I played football with Brad. You probably don't remember me. I didn't. I just wanted to say, he lowered his voice, that was incredible. What you just did. I've never seen anything like it. Brad's been insufferable for years. Last summer he tried to get me to invest in some pyramid scheme. Said he was going to be a millionaire by Christmas. He still says that? Every year. Different scheme, same promise. Dave shook his head. Honestly, I think half the people here are celebrating right now. Nobody actually likes the guy. They just tolerate him because his dad owns the company. Owned the company. Past tense. Wow. He laughed, a nervous little bark. I didn't laugh with him. I just looked at him until he stopped. Enjoy the reunion, Dave. I kept walking. The bar was set up in the corner of the gym, under the old basketball hoop that hadn't been replaced since the Clinton administration. The bartender was a kid in his 20s with a bad haircut and a name tag that said Kyle. He looked terrified. White wine, I said. Something that doesn't taste like it came out of a box. We have, Pinot Grigio? It's $12 a glass. I slid $100 bill across the counter. Keep them coming. While Kyle fumbled with the bottle, I surveyed the room. My high school gym. Same dead spot on the floor where a basketball never bounced right. Same bleachers with the chipped blue paint. Same smell of floor wax and teenage sweat and bad cafeteria pizza. They'd hung streamers from the rafters and set up tables with white tablecloths that didn't quite fit. A banner over the stage read Jefferson High Class of '98, 25 years strong. 25 years. I'd been class treasurer. Brad had been class president. We were voted cutest couple our senior year. The photo was still in the yearbook somewhere, him in his Letterman jacket, me in my mom's borrowed pearls, both of us grinning like we'd already won at life. We had no idea. Angie? Is that really you? I turned. 3 women stood in a cluster, clutching their wine glasses like life preservers. I recognized them immediately. The committee. That's what everyone called them in high school. Sherry, Melissa, and Dawn. They'd planned every prom, every pep rally, every fundraiser. They'd also spent 4 years making my life miserable because I was a scholarship kid from the wrong side of town. Sherry stepped forward. She'd aged better than the others. Good dermatologist, better surgeon. Her dress was designer, her jewelry was real, and her smile was fake as a $3 bill. We heard what happened, she said. With Brad. And the company. Everyone's talking about it. I'm sure they are. Is it true? You actually own Harrington now? Every share. Sherry's smile tightened. Well. That must be very satisfying for you. After everything. The divorce, you mean? Or the part where he left me while our daughter was fighting cancer? I said it brightly, like I was discussing the weather. Which everything are you referring to? Melissa gasped. Dawn looked at her shoes. Sherry's smile didn't waver, but her eyes went cold. The divorce, she said carefully. We were all so sorry to hear about that. No, you weren't, I thought. You gossiped about it for months. I know because Gladys told me. Gladys's niece worked at the salon where Sherry got her highlights done. Nothing stayed secret in this town. Thank you for your concern, I said. It all worked out in the end. I can see that. Sherry's eyes flicked to my watch. My cheap, scratched Timex. That's an interesting accessory choice. Very, understated. It was my father's. He gave it to me when I graduated. Right before he died. I held her gaze. He worked in your father's factory for 17 years. Ran the stamping press. Lost 2 fingers in the machine in '89. You probably don't remember that. Sherry's smile finally cracked. No, I didn't. It's fine. Most people don't remember the people who made their money for them. I took a sip of my Pinot Grigio. It was also terrible. Enjoy the reunion, ladies. I walked away before any of them could respond. Behind me, I heard Dawn whisper, "Oh my God, she's terrifying now." She wasn't wrong. The charity auction was scheduled for 8 o'clock. I spent the next hour circulating, letting people see me, letting the whisper spread. I talked to old classmates I barely remembered. I accepted condolences about my divorce and congratulations about my success. I smiled until my face hurt. Brad stayed in the far corner with Tiffany and a small group of his old football buddies. He was drinking heavily. Every time I glanced his way, he was ordering another whiskey. His friends kept patting him on the back, but their heart wasn't in it. They kept glancing at me too. Sizing me up. Calculating which side to stand on. At 7:45, I slipped outside to call Emily. The night air was cool and clean after the stuffy gym. I leaned against the brick wall by the side entrance and dialed her number. She picked up on the second ring. "Mom. How's the revenge tour going?" I laughed. "Your father's face is approximately the color of an eggplant." "Nice. Did you do the thing with the paper?" "I did the thing with the paper." "Did he cry?" "Not yet. But the night is young." Emily snorted. I could hear music in the background, something with a heavy bass line. She was at her friend's apartment, probably eating pizza and pretending to study. "How are you feeling?" I asked. The question was automatic now. Even after 10 years in remission, I still asked. "Fine, Mom. I'm always fine. You know that." She paused. "Are you okay? Like, actually okay? Not I'm about to destroy my ex-husband okay, but real okay?" I looked up at the stars. You couldn't see many of them from here. Too much light pollution from the parking lot. But a few were visible. The stubborn ones. "I don't know," I admitted. "I thought this would feel different. Bigger. Instead I just feel empty." "Yeah. That's because you're not a sociopath, Mom. Congratulations." Another pause. "When you're done in there, can we get milkshakes? The good kind from that place on Compton?" "Absolutely. You're a legend. Go get him." "I love you, Em." "Love you too. Text me when he cries." She hung up. I stood there for another minute, breathing in the cool air, polishing my watch with my thumb. My chest felt tight. Not with sadness. With something else. Something that might have been hope. Mary Lou's voice crackled in my ear. "Boss, the auction's starting in 5. Also, Brad just ordered his 6th whiskey and he's talking to the reunion organizer. Sounds like he's trying to get the microphone." "Of course he is." I pushed off the wall. Let's not keep him waiting. The auction was set up on the stage at the far end of the gym. A podium stood in the center, draped with a Jefferson High banner. To the left, a table displayed the auction items: a signed football from the '98 championship team, a quilt made by the Home Economics Club, a gift basket from the local winery, and the big-ticket item, a framed photo of the old football stadium, taken on the night of the homecoming game we won our senior year. I remembered that night. Brad had thrown the winning touchdown. I'd been in the stands, freezing in a borrowed coat, screaming until my throat bled. Afterward, he'd lifted me onto his shoulders and carried me across the field. Everyone had cheered. We'd felt invincible. We were children playing at being adults. The auctioneer was Mr. Patterson, our old history teacher. He was in his 70s now, frail but still sharp. He adjusted his glasses and tapped the microphone. "Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Jefferson High Class of '98 charity auction. All proceeds tonight will benefit the Children's Hospital Oncology Wing. A cause that, as some of you may know, is very close to our hearts tonight." He looked at me when he said that. I nodded, just slightly. He nodded back. The auction started with the small items. The football went for $200. The quilt for $150. The wine basket for $300. Polite applause after each bid. Nothing dramatic. Then we got to the stadium photo. "We'll start the bidding at $100, Mr. Patterson said." "200. A man's voice. One of Brad's football buddies. 300. Someone else. 500. This time it was Brad. He'd pushed his way to the front of the crowd. His face was flushed, his eyes glassy, but his voice was steady. He was performing now. The old Brad, the quarterback, the golden boy. He scanned the room like he expected applause. 500, Mr. Patterson repeated. Do I hear 600? Anyone? Going once. $10,000. I didn't shout it. I said it quietly, from my spot near the back, and the room still heard me. Every head turned. Mr. Patterson's glasses slid down his nose. I'm sorry, Angie, did you say? $10,000. For the hospital. Brad spun around. His eyes met mine. For a second, I saw something wild there. Something cornered. 15,000, he said. The crowd gasped. 25,000, I said. 30,000. 50,000. Brad's face went white. 50,000 was more than he made in a year. More than he had in his bank account. More than he could borrow, now that his credit cards were maxed out. He opened his mouth to speak. Be careful, Bradley, I said, still quiet. Still calm. You have a mortgage to pay. Well. Rent, now. Don't overextend yourself. Tiffany grabbed his arm. Brad, stop. We can't afford this. You know we can't. Shut up. He shook her off. 60,000. $100,000. The number hung in the air like a thunderclap. Nobody breathed. Mr. Patterson's hand was shaking so hard he had to put his gavel down. Brad stared at me. I stared back. His hand went to his cuff. Tug. Tug. Going once, Mr. Patterson whispered. Going twice. 110,000, Brad said. His voice cracked on the last syllable. Tiffany let out a sob. I smiled. 150,000. Brad's mouth opened. Nothing came out. His shoulders sagged. His hand dropped from his cuff and hung limp at his side. Going once. Going twice. Sold. Mr. Patterson's gavel came down with a crack. To Angie Brooks Harrington. For $150,000. The room erupted. People were clapping, cheering, slapping tables. Someone hooped. Joe the janitor whistled through his fingers. I walked up to the stage, accepted the framed photo, and then turned to face the crowd. Thank you, I said. The Children's Hospital will put this money to good use. I know. My daughter spent 18 months there. I looked down at the photo. This is a beautiful picture. But I don't need it. I have the memories. Someone else should have it. I scanned the room. My eyes landed on Joe, still leaning on his mop in the back. Joe, I said. You've been at this school for 40 years. You were here the night this photo was taken. You've cleaned this gym more times than anyone can count. This belongs to you. I walked down from the stage, crossed the gym, and handed the framed photo to the old janitor. His eyes went wide. His hands trembled as he took it. Miss Angie, he said. I don't know what to. Thank you for always remembering my name, I said. Even when nobody else did. Joe looked at the photo. Then at me. Then he pulled a handkerchief from his pocket and blew his nose so loud it echoed. The applause started again. Louder this time. I didn't look at Brad. I didn't need to. I could feel his eyes on my back like two hot coals. The revenge tour was going exactly according to plan. But the best part hadn't even started yet. The applause was still ringing in my ears when Brad finally snapped. He shoved through the crowd like a bull through a china shop. People stumbled out of his way. Someone's wine glass shattered on the floor. His face wasn't red anymore. It was gray. The color of wet concrete. The color of a man watching his entire life get dismantled one sentence at a time. You think you're funny, he said. His voice came out low and rough, scraped raw by whiskey and humiliation. You think this is some kind of joke? I turned to face him. The gym had gone quiet again. Even the band had stopped playing. Kyle the bartender was frozen mid-pour, Pinot Grigio dripping onto his shoes. I don't think it's a joke at all, I said. I think it's an audit. 8 years overdue. You were nothing. He stepped closer. I could smell the bourbon on his breath, the sour sweat soaking through his rented tuxedo. You were nothing before me and you're nothing now. So you made some money? Big deal. You're still the same pathetic woman who couldn't keep a man. Someone in the crowd muttered, dude, don't. One of his football buddies. Even they were backing away now. Brad. Tiffany's voice was high and tight. She was pulling at his arm. Brad, please. Everyone's watching. Let's just go. Let's just. No. He yanked his arm free. I'm not leaving until everyone here knows the truth about her. The truth? I raised an eyebrow. Which truth is that, Bradley? The one where you abandoned your sick child? The one where you haven't made a mortgage payment in 3 months? The one where your father voted to sell the company because he didn't trust you to run a lemonade stand? Which truth are we talking about? The crowd inhaled as one. Brad's hands curled into fists. You think you're so much better than me. You think you're some big success story. But I know who you really are. You're the woman who used to scrub toilets for $40 a pop. You're the woman who cried herself to sleep for 3 years. You're the woman who begged me to come back. Remember that? Remember the voicemails? I remembered. Of course I remembered. Those voicemails had been the lowest point of my life. Drunk dialing him at 2 in the morning, sobbing into the phone, asking him to please come home, please, I couldn't do this alone, please, Emily needed her father. He'd never called back. Not once. I remember, I said quietly. I remember every single one of those voicemails. And you know what else I remember? The day I stopped leaving them. What's that supposed to mean? It means I found something better to do with my time. I touched my earpiece. Mary Lou? Can you bring me the file? Silence. Then Mary Lou's voice in my ear, on my way. 2 minutes. Brad laughed. A bitter, ragged sound. Who's Mary Lou? Your bodyguard? Your driver? What, you can't even come to a reunion by yourself? Mary Lou, I said, is the woman who saved my life. The side door opened. Every head turned. Mary Lou walked in. She was wearing her usual outfit, a plain cardigan, sensible shoes, glasses hanging from a chain around her neck. She looked like someone's grandmother. She looked like a librarian. She looked like absolutely nothing special. That was her superpower. She walked through the crowd with the calm confidence of a woman who had seen everything and feared nothing. In her hands, she carried a thick manila folder. The kind with legal tabs and notary stamps and signatures in blue ink. Here you go, boss. She handed me the folder. Her 2-second pause. Also, your daughter texted. She wants to know if he's cried yet. Tell her almost. Mary Lou stepped back and folded her hands. She didn't leave. She stood right next to me, solid as a stone wall, her eyes fixed on Brad like he was a bug she was considering squashing. Brad stared at the folder. What's that? This? I held it up. This is the file. The complete file. Every document. Every receipt. Every legal filing. Let me give you the highlights. I opened the folder and pulled out the first document. Exhibit A, Divorce Decree. Filed by you. Grounds, irreconcilable differences. Remember what the irreconcilable difference was, Brad? It was the cancer. Emily's cancer. You literally wrote in your deposition that the emotional burden of the child's illness had rendered the marriage unsustainable. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Tiffany's hand went to her mouth. I never, Brad started. It's in your own handwriting, Bradley. Page 4, paragraph 2. I have copies if anyone wants to see. I pulled out the second document. Exhibit B, bank statements from the year of our divorce. You withdrew $43,000 from our joint account 3 days before filing. You said it was for business expenses. It was actually for a down payment on the house you now share with Tiffany. The one I own. Irony's funny that way. Brad's jaw was working but no sound was coming out. Exhibit C. The paperwork for the hostile takeover. Signed by 7 board members. Including your father. See that signature there? I pointed. That shaky one? His hands aren't what they used to be. But he still managed to sign. Said it was the easiest decision he'd ever made. You're lying. Brad's voice was a whisper now. My father wouldn't betray me. He didn't betray you. He just finally did what he should have done 20 years ago. He stopped protecting you. I pulled out the final document. Exhibit D. The termination letter. Effective immediately. Your employment at Harrington Home Supplies is hereby ended. Your division is dissolved. Your pension is revoked. Your severance package is $0.00. I handed him the paper. He didn't take it. His arms hung at his sides like dead things. She's also being generous, Mary Lou said. Her voice cut through the silence like a blade. Everyone jumped. They'd forgotten she was there. The pension revocation is standard for termination with cause. But she could have pressed charges. Embezzlement. Fraud. The $43,000 you stole from the joint account? That's a felony in this state. Brad's face went from gray to white. Charges? He croaked. She decided against it. Mary Lou's eyes were cold. For your daughter's sake. She didn't want Emily to visit her father in prison. Tiffany let out a noise I'd never heard a human make before. Something between a sob and a scream. She turned to Brad with a look of absolute, world-ending fury. You stole money? Her voice climbed with every word. You told me that was your bonus. Your signing bonus. You said we were set. You said, she stopped. Her face changed. The boat. The stupid boat you named after yourself. You bought that with stolen money? It wasn't stolen. It was a loan. I was going to pay it back. When? When were you going to pay it back? I don't know. Eventually. When things turned around. Tiffany stared at him. For a long, terrible moment, nobody moved. Then she reached up and pulled off her wedding ring. It wasn't dramatic. It was simple. Mechanical. Like she was taking off a coat. You told me she was crazy. Tiffany's voice was flat now. Dead. You told me she was lazy and unattractive and crazy. You said the cancer thing was exaggerated. You said she was faking it for attention. I felt those words hit my chest like a physical blow. Faking it. For attention. The 18 months of chemo. The bald head. The feeding tubes. The nights I slept on a plastic chair next to Emily's bed, holding her hand through the rails. All of it. Faking it. She was 6 years old, I said. My voice came out strange. Tight. She was 6 years old and you told people she was faking it. Brad didn't answer. He couldn't. His whole world was collapsing and he was standing in the middle of the wreckage with his mouth open and nothing coming out. Tiffany walked away. Just turned and walked toward the exit, her heels clicking on the old gym floor. One of her friends followed her. Then another. The door swung shut behind them. Brad was alone. I should have felt triumphant. I should have felt victorious. Instead I felt something hollow open up in my chest. A space I'd been filling with rage for 8 years. Now the rage was gone. And underneath it, there was just nothing. Is this what you wanted? Brad's voice was barely audible. To humiliate me in front of everyone? To take everything I have? I didn't take anything you had, Bradley. You never had anything. You were pretending. You've been pretending your whole life. The car, the house, the job, the wife, it was all borrowed. All leased. All built on your father's name and other people's money. I just turned on the lights. He looked at me. For the first time that night, he actually looked at me. Not at the woman he'd discarded. Not at the cleaning lady. Not at the enemy. At me. Angie. The girl he'd married when we were both too young to know what love meant. I'm sorry, he said. The words hung in the air. 2 words. 8 years late. A lifetime too late. I know you are, I said. I know you're sorry you got caught. I know you're sorry your life is falling apart. I know you're sorry your wife just walked out. But are you sorry for Emily? Are you sorry for the birthdays you missed? The chemo sessions you skipped? The night she cried for her daddy and I had to tell her he wasn't coming? Brad's chin trembled. A tear slid down his cheek. The first real emotion I'd seen from him in 8 years. I didn't know how, he whispered. When she got sick, I didn't know how to be there. I didn't know how to handle it. My dad, he never taught me how to do the hard stuff. He just taught me how to win. And when I couldn't win, I ran. I wanted to hate him. I did hate him. But somewhere underneath the hate, I understood. Not forgave. Understood. Brad Harrington was a man who'd been told his whole life that he was special, that he was destined for greatness, that the rules didn't apply to him. When life got real, when things got hard, he had no idea what to do. So he did the only thing he knew. He ran. My father taught me something different, I said. He taught me that you show up. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. He lost 2 fingers in a factory machine and he went back to work the next day because we needed the money. That's what being a man looks like, Brad. Not touchdowns. Not trophies. Showing up. Brad wiped his face with his sleeve. His rented tuxedo sleeve. The one he was supposed to return tomorrow. What do I do now? He asked. Everything's gone. The job. The house. Tiffany. What do I do? I reached into my purse and pulled out a business card. It was creased and worn. I'd been carrying it for months, waiting for this moment. This is a counselor. A career counselor. She specializes in helping people transition out of family businesses. I pressed the card into his hand. Call her. She's expecting your call. Brad stared at the card. Why would you help me? Because you're Emily's father. Because no matter how much I hate what you did, she still deserves a father she can be proud of someday. Get your life together, Brad. Not for me. For her. I turned to leave. Angie. I stopped. The voicemails you left. Those years ago. His voice cracked. I listened to them. Every single one. I didn't know what to say. I didn't turn around. Then you should have said that. Anything would have been better than silence. I walked away. The crowd parted for me. People reached out to touch my arm, my shoulder. Someone whispered, God bless you. Someone else said, you're amazing. I barely heard any of it. The gym door swung open. The cool night air hit my face. I stood in the parking lot, under the flickering streetlight, and I breathed. Mary Lou appeared beside me. She didn't say anything for a long moment. Then, that was harder than you expected. Yeah. The counselor card. You didn't tell me about that. It felt like the right thing. Mary Lou's 2-second pause. It was. She put her arm around my shoulders. Mary Lou had never done that before. In 6 years of working together, she'd never touched me beyond a handshake. I leaned into her, just for a second. Your father would be proud, she said. I polished my watch with my thumb. You think so? I know so. The drive home was quiet. Mary Lou took the wheel while I sat in the passenger seat, watching the town slide past. The diner where I'd scrubbed floors. The church where I'd prayed. The hospital where Emily had fought for her life. All the landmarks of my past, lit up and ordinary in the dark. Drop me at Emily's, I said. She's at her friend's place, right? The apartment on Compton? That's the one. 20 minutes later, we pulled up outside a rundown building with a flickering neon sign. Mary Lou put the car in park and turned to me. What happens now? I thought about it. The company. The house. The revenge. All the things I'd spent 8 years building toward. All the things I'd finally achieved. I don't know, I said honestly. I thought this would be the end. The happy ending. But it doesn't feel like an ending. It feels like a beginning. Of something I haven't figured out yet. Mary Lou nodded. That's because revenge isn't a destination. It's a road. And roads keep going. Since when did you get so philosophical? Since I spent 6 years watching the most stubborn woman I've ever met rebuild her entire life from scratch. Some things rub off. I laughed. A real laugh. Good night, Mary Lou. Good night, boss. I got out of the car and walked up to the apartment building. Before I could knock, the door flew open. Emily stood there in pajama pants and a Jefferson high hoodie. Her hair was messy. Her face was flushed. She looked exactly like she had when she was 6 years old, waiting for me in her hospital bed. Well, she demanded. Did he cry? Like a baby. Yes. She pumped her fist. I knew it. I knew you'd make him cry. Come in. I ordered pizza. It's cold but I microwaved it twice. The apartment was tiny. 1 bedroom, a kitchen the size of a closet, and a living room furnished with hand-me-downs and thrift store finds. Emily's roommate was gone for the weekend. It was just us. We sat on the floor and ate cold pizza straight from the box. I told her everything. The slap. The paper. The auction. The folder. The counselor card. She listened without interrupting, her eyes wide. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. You gave him a counselor card, she said finally. Yeah. Why? Because destroying him felt good for about 5 minutes. Then it just felt heavy. Emily nodded slowly. That's called being a decent person, Mom. It's annoying, isn't it? Incredibly. But you're not forgiving him, right? Like, he's not coming to Christmas dinner? No. He's definitely not coming to Christmas dinner. Good. Because I already bought him a lump of coal. She grinned. I'm kidding. I bought him nothing. I've been buying him nothing for 8 years. I laughed so hard I choked on my pizza. Emily slapped my back until I stopped coughing. Then she leaned her head on my shoulder. Mom? Yeah? You know what I remember most about being in the hospital? The question caught me off guard. What? Not the needles. Not the sick part. I remember you. Every single morning, you were there. You never missed a day. Not one. My throat tightened. I would have slept on the floor if they'd let me. You basically did. That plastic chair was basically the floor. She lifted her head and looked at me. I never needed him. I had you. I always had you. I didn't cry. I wanted to. I felt the tears building up behind my eyes. But I didn't cry. Instead, I pulled her into a hug and held on. Milkshakes, I said into her hair. I promised you milkshakes. It's 11 o'clock at night. That diner on Compton is open 24 hours. Emily pulled back and grinned. The one with the broken jukebox and the waitress who calls everyone honey? That's the one. Let's go. We walked to the diner. It was only 6 blocks, and the night was cool and quiet. Emily talked about her classes, her friends, the boy in her biology lab who couldn't stop staring at her. I listened and laughed and asked questions. Normal conversation. Normal life. The diner was exactly as I remembered it. Cracked red vinyl stools at the counter. Fluorescent lights that hummed. The smell of old coffee and fresh pie. The waitress, a woman named Dottie who'd worked there for 30 years, recognized me immediately. "Angie Brooks," she said, pouring 2 coffees without being asked. "Haven't seen you in a while. Heard you're some kind of big shot now." "I'm the same person I always was, Dottie. That's what all the rich folks say." She winked. 2 chocolate milkshakes? Extra whipped cream, Emily added. We sat in a booth by the window. The same booth where I used to sit after my late-night cleaning shifts, counting my tips and trying to figure out how to pay the next bill. The table still had the same scratch. The window still had the same crack. "Mom." Emily was stirring her milkshake with her straw. "Are you happy? Like, really happy?" I thought about it. The question deserved an honest answer. "I'm getting there," I said. I spent so long being angry. The anger was like fuel. It kept me going. But now the fuel is gone and I have to figure out what comes next. That's not a bad thing. That's just life. Since when did you get so wise? Since I spent 18 months in a hospital bed watching my mom fight like a gladiator. She took a long sip of her milkshake. "You'll figure it out. You always do." I looked at my watch. My dad's old Timex. The glass was scratched. The band was thin. But it still worked. It had always worked. "You know what your grandfather said when he gave me this watch?" "What?" "Keep track of time. It's the one thing you can't get back." Emily nodded. "Sounds like a smart guy." He was. He really was. We finished our milkshakes. Dottie refused to let me pay. "You gave Joe that picture," she said. "He's my brother-in-law. He hasn't stopped talking about it all night. Milkshakes are on the house." Joe. Of course Joe was Dottie's brother-in-law. In a town this small, everyone was connected. We walked home under the stars. Emily was quiet, her hand tucked into mine like she was 6 years old again. When we got back to her apartment, she hugged me at the door. "I'm proud of you, Mom." "Thanks, Em. Not for the revenge. For the counselor card. That was the hard part." I kissed her forehead. "Get some sleep." "You too." I drove home alone. The house on Maple Street was empty and quiet. My house. Really mine now. Not Brad's. Not the bank's. Mine. I sat on the front porch for a long time, watching the stars. The porch swing creaked the way it always had. The neighbor's dog barked 3 houses away. The world was imperfect and messy and full of things that couldn't be fixed. But some things could. I looked at my watch one more time. Then I went inside, closed the door, and slept better than I had in 8 years.